Alright guys, we're going to look at the pec deck rear delt fly now. There's actually quite a few considerations with this, as well as a couple of different ways you can go about approaching the execution of this as well, depending on what you're trying to get out of the goal of the exercise. So we're going to get Charlie to start with a more traditional pec deck rear delt fly. So you'll notice here that he's got a bit more of a neutral spine sort of position here. He's not forcing protraction or retraction at this point. He's in his wrist, elbow and shoulder are somewhat aligned as he setups into the cable here, and he's adjusted the seat height for him as an individual to allow for that setup at the moment. Now really the goal is very simple when it comes to rear delts. We're looking in the pec deck to really just focus on abducting the upper arm as wide as we can. Now one thing to bear in mind that people often get wrong is they try and force the arms way too far back, and so they almost end up either, and we'll do one with the big rotation Charlie, they either really rotate at the humerus and end up just getting this kind of anterior, what we call glenohumeral glide. So it just means that the head of the humerus is dumping forward in the joint, which we definitely don't want. We're getting a ton of upper traps involved. So neither of those things are the goal here. Really the goal is to keep the elbow slightly soft or straight, depending on what feels most comfortable and allows you to get the most force output. And the goal really is just to focus on that maximal adduction and really firing up those rear delts. Now, another thing that we can do is if we wanted to put a little bit more bias into that lengthened position, we can get Charlie to sit a little bit further back in the seat. We can get him to start in a more protracted position now so that the kind of rear delts are a little bit more lengthened in that position, and then we work them through that kind of lengthened into sort of mid-range of the rear delts. So you'll see that he can't get, as a result of that, he's not going to get as quite as far back. So again, a big mistake would be to be set up in this position and try to force that range when we simply just don't have it, or it just might not be relevant. Now, a final way we might tweak this exercise is we kind of discussed that the rear delts from an orientation perspective as fibers don't actually run straight along like this. They actually run a little bit more obliquely down. And so what we've often done with clients, and if it's just something you have to play around with as an individual, is we've set them up higher. Now this particular machine for Charlie is great because we can put it right at the top seat position, and it allows him to almost direct the arms naturally a little bit down below the height of the shoulder. So you'll see that that upper arm runs a little bit more obliquely down, and actually lines up for most individuals a lot better with those rear delt fibers. Now, if you've got another type of machine that might allow you to stand, that actually might be more preferable. And for many of our female clients, just pause for a second, Charlie. We've had to, in many of the Life Fitness variations, especially the older styles, we've had to put plates under their feet in order to actually get them in a position where they can guide the upper arms down in that type of setup. But if you're fortunate enough to be as tall as Charlie, or the machine allows you to set up with a slightly lower hand position relative to the elbow and the shoulder, then that's actually a fantastic position to end up in. And what you're going to find is that it allows you to really dial into those rear delts. Last consideration we might want to do is, obviously Charlie's performed all of these with quite a stiff or straight arm. Now, if we did want to get the rear delts just a little bit closer towards that shortened range, bear in mind we're never going to get fully short here because that's what the rear delt rows are there for, and we're never going to be able to do that unless we flex at the elbow as well. What we are going to want to do is actually soften those elbows a little bit more. So with a slightly softer elbow, he's able to just get that little bit more extension as he abducts the upper arm out and away, so horizontal extension, there we go. And we could also start with a slightly straighter arm, and as he gets towards end range, he can soften those elbows just that little bit more. So again, these are just all little manipulations that we might put in the client's program just for them to get the stimulus out of the rear delts that we're after.